Welcome to the Rational Egoist. I'm your host, Michael Liebowitz, and we have a real treat today. We have a friend of mine. He's coming to us from India. He's a great young man. I think he's 22 years old, correct?
Yes, yes.
22 years old, very bright guy, very interested in ideas. He's a student of Ayn Rand, of Hans Hermann Hoppe, Murray Rothbard. He continues to grow and to learn. And today we are going to have a debate, he and I assure you it will be cordial and friendly, as our debates always
Yes.
are between Mon and myself. And the proposition that we are going to be debating is anarcho-capitalism is a legitimate concept. And Mon is going to take the affirmative. Mon, is there anything else I need to say about you? You got a show or anything you want to plug or tell people?
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever. But we'll do that at the
Well, I
end.
have
I'll
a
let you do
new
that at the
YouTube
end.
channel.
We're
Yeah.
going to let you do that at the end.
Okay.
He's got a show, and I'm volunteering right now. If you want me, I'll be a guest. Okay, Mon, go ahead. Make your argument.
All right. So, for the sake of argument, in this debate, I'm going to give what my view of anarcho-capitalism is. I know there are a lot of competing views, and there's a lot of talk about that. And so, I'll tell you what I think it is. And my view of anarcho-capitalism can be summed up in one sentence. It is a society adhering to the non-aggression principle and the natural law philosophy that follows from that. So this would not mean necessarily that it has to be a competing defense agencies model, though it can be. This doesn't necessarily mean this has to be a covenant community model. It can be. You could have like preferences between one or the other, and I'm working on something along those lines. But broadly, if the general society is following the non-aggression principle, they're not, let's say, initiating force upon each other, then I would consider that society an anarcho-capitalist society, and not otherwise. And of course, like there'll always be limited amounts of crime in a society. So like, not to get into the true Scotsman fallacy that okay, one guy committed a crime, there was one non-aggression violation, therefore this is no longer ANCAP. The broad position is that there are no, let's say, big, large agencies going around violating people's rights, and there is the general philosophical understanding, moral understanding in society is that the non-aggression principle is broadly accepted. So that would be my general view. And so, what do you think about that?
Okay, first off, right off the bat, society adhering to the non aggression principle and the natural law philosophy that follows from that. Is the non aggression principle derived from a broader theory, or is it the foundation of the
Yes,
theory?
it
Okay,
is derived from the broad.
so the natural law would have to come first, correct?
No, no, no. That's
How not?
the yeah. I would
How
say
not?
that natural law, and this is okay. Let me give that in the sense that the non-aggression principle would be an application of rational egoism to the field of, as the Austrians say, you know, scarcity of resources. In the sense that I am a man, and I know that I can come in. I know that resources are finite. For example, this mug is finite. Me and you can't have it at the same time in the same respect, as Aristotle says, like law of identity. And so there has to be one person, like if both of us are trying to use it, there has to be one person which can legitimately use it, and the another person cannot, right? And so that's where you come from. There can be two ways to resolve these conflicts. One would be that the initiator of the conflict wins, and the other has to be that the non-initiator of the conflict wins, right? And I would say, from rational egoism, like from the broader objectivist philosophy that we can rely upon, we can see that the non-initiator of the conflict has to win. We can go into the entire point there, but it is like you could see where it would come from,
Okay.
why the non-initiator
So
has to win,
okay.
right?
So I
In the
want you
sense
to do two
that's
things for
the
me.
non-predatory form of, like, that's
Okay.
the non-parasitic form of living.
Okay. So the first thing that I
Right?
want you to do is define natural law. Tell
Okay.
me what it is that
uh,
we're even talking about.
all right. Okay, so natural law, as we know, historically it has been used, is the legal philosophy which comes from, studying man's nature, that man is a volitional being, man is a rational being. Like they didn't study it in those terms, but that's what they were getting at, you know, in this, and thus discovering that, not every legal, not every way of living for man qua legality is legitimate. That there are some laws which are necessitated by man's nature, and some are not. And I would say what you could do in the and like this is the broader point, that the basis of the field of law would be the NAP, the NAP, and the NAP is then grounded into, let's say, the application of the virtue of independence, not being a parasite, let's say, to the field of conflicts. And from the NAP, you could have property rights, and from property rights, you could have contract law, and from you could have, you could apply it to different areas and get different fields of law, right? And so that is the general view of the way I see, like uh, natural law being. But like, okay, yeah, I would say that's what I'm saying, in the sense that it is a legal philosophy. It is the philosophy of what the law should be. That is how conflicts need to be resolved, coming from a study of man's nature, namely the fact that non-aggression is correct, because aggression, aggressing upon other people, initiating force upon other people, that's a parasitism, and that's incorrect.
Okay.
We can get that from.
So historically, the idea of
Mhm.
natural law precedes the
Mhm.
idea of natural rights.
It does in the historical timeline. It does, but I'm saying in the
Yes.
logical
Okay.
hierarchy, it doesn't. It
All
doesn't.
right. So in essence, what you're saying, see, I would say that the two basically are concomitant. That once you
Mhm.
identify that people have rights, you have the idea that the purpose of government or anything, any defense would be to defend those rights.
Mhm.
Right. That's how I would put it.
But
So the
see,
two. So I'm in partial agreement here with you. When I'm
okay,
thinking natural law, I'm thinking that the NAP has to be grounded in something beyond itself. That the idea of
agreed,
non-initiating
agreed.
force has to be so. I wouldn't say
Yes,
necessarily that it has to come from natural law, but it has to come from a broader theory.
somewhere, right?
So I'm
Yes.
not going to bog you down in justifying the NAP because I tend to I don't tend I absolutely agree that the initiation of force is evil. So I'm not going to put pressure on you to come to that. But I
Mhm.
am going to put pressure on you to first validate the concept of rights.
Okay,
To define rights, and I want you to validate it.
okay. And so uh, there are various, like, definitions of rights, as you might know. There, for example, the Austro-libertarians, they might want to say, for example, you know, if you if you can exclude others from something, you have a right to something. I prefer the objectivist definition of, a moral act. Like, the right is something like, you have the impetus of action in a social context, something along those lines, right?
Okay, Man,
If
I
right.
want to know for the sake of this discussion,
Mhm.
I want to
Yeah.
know the concept of rights that you are defending. How do you
All right.
define that concept of rights?
All right. So for me, the concept of rights, a right to something, would be that you have the moral, uh, what do you say, authority to do a certain action, or to prevent others from doing certain actions over some particular good, or good or resource, including your own body, right? So
Okay.
something like that, in the
Okay.
sense that, uh,
So
right,
you have the right to be moral.
not the right, because we can't say rights are rights to be moral, but like, we have a right to be moral, right?
You
But
do
what
have a
you're
right to
saying
be
is like,
moral, but do you have a right beyond
yes,
being moral?
yes,
Because you
well,
said moral authority. So I'm wondering. I want to clarify what exactly it is you mean by a right is the moral
let me give
authority.
you an example, right? Let me give you an example, in the sense that I have a house. I legitimately own this house. Let's say I have a property right in this house. What this means is not that nobody can ever potentially, through a show of force, take this house from me. It's that if they do, they would be acting immorally. right? I have the
Mm-hmm.
moral authority to decide what goes on in this house, right?
Okay. Yep. So, do you have the moral authority to engage in prostitution, gambling, drug abuse? Do you have the moral authority to do those things?
In the sense that nobody else has a right to stop me. It might not be
Okay.
like good for me though.
Okay.
Hmm.
So I'm going to say that moral authority to do those things wouldn't be the proper way to phrase it. Because
Okay.
saying because to me and I think to in logic, saying I have the moral authority to do something means that I'm right to do it, right? What I
Hmm.
would say to you, and I would just you can tell me what you think about this. First of all, the prohibition against the initiation of force comes before the idea that you have rights, because that is
Yes.
how when you're talking about your own moral behavior, you're saying I
Hmm.
cannot initiate force against anybody else. That has nothing to do
Yes.
with whether the other person has rights or not. What rights
Hmm.
ultimately, and this is not the, I have to, I hate that I have to say it, but I kind of do. This is my formulation. I've never read it in objectivism. But the
Hmm.
logical entailment, what it means when you boil it right down, is to have a right to something means that these are the situations in which I'm morally authorized to use force. So, for
I agree with it.
instance, if
Yeah.
I'm sniffing heroin and you come over and try to stop me physically, I have the right to
Yes.
use force. A right is a
But
moral
then,
claim to something. I have a moral claim to do what I want as long as I'm not violating other people's rights. Therefore, if
yes, yes,
you try to stop me physically, I am perfectly moral in using force. So, rights
yes,
ultimately tell you when it would be moral to use physical force against other people.
yes. I would
Okay,
agree with
so
that. But there is a problem with that in the sense that when you say that, let's say people have a right to life, right? Uh,
yes,
what does that mean? In the sense that, uh, does it mean that if you're trying to deprive me of my life, then I have the right to use force, right?
yes.
It would
What
mean
it
something
means to
along those
say that
lines.
I have the right to life means that I have the right to take those actions that I deem necessary, that I deem necessary. And I could be mistaken, but I have the right to take those actions that I deem necessary for my own well being, for my
Hmm.
happiness, for my long term survival, and everything
Yes.
that implies. So, I mean, it's a long logical chain, but that
Hmm.
ultimately comes down to I have the right to property. Why? Because in order to survive, I
Yes.
have to be able to accumulate
You
property,
need
that sort of
property.
thing. And that
But
you have
then
to put the
my definition
qualifier,
would be better. Go ahead.
but unless, but the right to life, unless but I have the right to life and does not entail the right to pursue
Come on.
my own interest at the expense of other people.
Yes.
I don't have the right to violate the rights of other people, right? So the
Yes.
right to life just means that I have the right to take the actions that I deem necessary
Hmm.
for my own happiness, well being,
Yes.
longevity, that I think are
Yes.
best for me. Right, that is a
Hmm.
moral conclusion based on the fact that life is the standard of value, right?
Hmm.
If my life is the standard of moral values, then I have
It
to have
is.
the right to the preconditions, the set of actions that I deem necessary to pursue that. So
I
that's
agree.
how I would
Mhm.
explain rights.
Yeah. But that, see, that's where I would say, and this is the problem I ran into, let's say 2 weeks ago, in the sense that I used to define rights in terms of force as well, like you did. But
No,
then
no, I'm not defining rights in
it
terms of
gets
force. I'm not
like,
defining it
then
that
it's
way.
legitimate to use force, right?
I'm explaining that that's what it comes down to. But a
It does
right,
come down to it.
and
Yeah.
this comes down to what what where a lot of people will disagree with me. The term
Yeah.
right has meant something for hundreds of years. There's a concept,
Hmm.
right? It means a
Hmm.
moral claim to something, a just claim to
Yes.
something,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
now, if someone comes along, if I say I adhere to natural rights philosophy or individual rights philosophy, and somebody disagrees, and then I
Hmm.
change what those words mean, right?
Hmm.
Well, now I'm not making the argument that that person was opposing. And similarly,
It's not coherent.
yes, if somebody says I oppose rights, and I say okay, well then let's debate rights, and they say I oppose the idea. I'm going to make something completely silly up. I oppose the idea that my
Hmm.
moral stature stems from drinking Diet Coke. Okay, but that's not
Yeah.
what rights are. You've
That's
completely
not what we're talking
changed
about.
what the
Yeah.
word means. Now you're arguing against something
Hmm.
different.
Yeah.
So we can just agree so that we can get to the next step here. So we agree
Let's get to the.
that the initiation of force is wrong, and
Mhm.
we agree that people have rights due to their stature as moral beings. By moral
Yes.
beings, I mean that we have to make actions that are either moral or immoral,
Yes.
and
Yes.
that it ultimately comes down to that I have the moral authority to defend myself against physical aggressions.
I would agree. Yes. And
Okay,
yeah. And
all
this is why I
perfect.
was saying like moral authority over so some physical good, including my own body. For example, that's what it is like, in the sense that it like I can be immoral in injecting heroin inside me, but I have the moral authority to do so in the sense that nobody else has a higher authority
Yes.
to
Okay.
stop me in using force,
Yes,
right?
you have the moral. I would argue you have the moral authority to use physical force against somebody who
To stop
uses
her.
physical
Yes,
force
yes.
against you. There. Okay.
But even if I couldn't, right? Like even if
Yeah.
the other person is like like Arnold Schwarzenegger comes up to me and he like stops, like no, like he's in his Austrian accent, like no more heroin, right? And so he'll still be wrong even if he succeeds in stopping me from exercising my rights. Would you agree
Yeah.
with that?
You're gonna have to repeat it because I was formulating the
So
next question while
okay,
you asked that, so I
all
wanted
right,
to make sure I understand it. Go ahead.
okay. So let's say Arnold Schwarzenegger comes across and he says in his thick Austrian accent that, "Man, you should not use heroin," and he like takes my heroin away and he puts it over there. And I would say that it doesn't matter that he succeeded in violating my right to inject heroin. I would say he'd still be wrong to do so, right?
Yes,
Like
absolutely,
so,
and
like
you would have the right
yeah.
to retaliate. By the way,
But even if I
to
cannot, like even if it's
no,
he's
yeah, he's
Arnold and
still
I have no
morally
power,
wrong. Yes, he's still morally
yes,
incorrect. Yes, might does not make
yes,
right. Yeah, okay. So
yes.
we're on the same page
Mhm,
thus far.
mhm.
Okay, so that being the case, would you agree with me that capitalism is ultimately the economic system whereby individual rights are protected?
I can broadly agree to that. The only problem I slightly have is, should we use the word economic? Because capitalism is more of a moral legal system, which, and then economics is a science, right? Like it's a
I
later
think
thing.
this is what I think. I think that capitalism
Yeah,
is ultimately an economic system, but it implies a political system. But I
but
would
that
say the two,
the hierarchy, right?
yes, because capitalism is ultimately the private ownership of the means of production, right? But if we trace
Mm-hmm,
down what private ownership is and what that entails, and we go through the long chain that I don't think it's necessary for you and I to go through, we ultimately come to the
mm-hmm,
conclusion that in order for private ownership to exist, then the individual rights have to be secure. So you're talking
mm-hmm.
about an economic system that necessarily entails a political system.
Yep. And so, what would you call the political system that it entails?
Well, that's kind of what we're going to
You,
get
you see,
into. That no, but that's
that's
what
the
we're going to get
problem.
into. We're going to talk about
Right.
what political system best ensures or gives us the best chance of having our individual rights protected.
Mhm. Okay,
So
we can come
that's
back to this later, but you do
but
see a problem in like defining it economically, right? Like
no,
in the
I
sense
don't.
that
I don't. No,
it's
because
reversing cause and effect. Like the economic
no,
prosperity is because of the legal moral
but
system.
it's yeah. I got it. But you're talking about two separate
Mhm,
things, because
mhm,
ultimately you have to decide now. Okay, is one man dictatorship the best to protect individual rights in the economic sphere? Is
mhm,
an ANCAP society best? Is a constitutional
mhm,
republic the best thing?
mhm.
I'm not saying that capitalism isn't dependent. I'm just saying capitalism refers to ownership of the means of production. It refers
Privately.
necessarily to the economic sphere.
Okay, let's agree for that for now. We can work with that.
Okay, I got to hit something here. Okay. So now the question becomes what political, this is the question, this kind of gets to what you're talking about.
Yes.
What are the
Mhm,
political requirements for individual rights in a society to be protected? What type of system
mhm.
best does that. So I want you to tell me,
Hmm.
without naming the actual system, I want to know what are the requirements in order for private ownership of the means of production. What are the preconditions to institute and to have that?
Well, we must have some sort of a bureaucratic structure, in the sense that we must have some sort of a structure out there which efficiently and effectively it stops in the initiation of force. And when the force is initiated, we have to go after the people who did initiate force, and you know uh, execute justice, in the sense that uh, like we can I don't want to go into the theory of justice, but the justice has to be done. Like force, the initiation of force has to be stopped, private property has to be protected, and if initiation of force takes place, justice has to take place, and we have to create an economic system, economic structure which best does that. Would you agree with that?
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to add to it a little bit. I would say that
Hmm.
you need to have objective laws that are
I agree.
knowable by people in advance so that I
Yes.
know
Yes.
what is okay for me to do and what is not okay for me to do, what would be
Agree.
illegal. And there's some issues, a lot of folks on my team, not just objectivists, I'm talking the folks who protect individual rights, sometimes act as if you just say, well, you just protect individual rights and that solves
What are
everything.
they?
But no, but there's close cases, right? And there's
Yeah.
arguments to be made that are tight. What if you have, for instance, a stream that goes through an entire city, and I've been and the part of that stream is on someone else's property, part of it is on mine. I'm downstream. The guy upstream decides to put a dam. It's on his property. Is he violating my rights? I'm not saying I want to answer the question now. I'm just saying that there's close
I know.
calls, and we need to
There
know
are
how to
questions to be
act.
asked.
Yes, we need to know how to act in advance so that we're not violating those laws. We have to be able to know if we go into a court of law whether we're likely to succeed or not. So we do
Yes.
need we need, first of all, we need some sort of police, right, that
Hmm.
are going
Yeah.
to monitor the situation and arrest people that are violating rights. But we also need
Hmm.
courts of law, both to prosecute those people and to settle disputes among participants in the economy, all of which who may be perfectly honest, but they just have a disagreement. So we need courts of law.
Yes.
And we also need something to defend the broader community from invasion from outside.
I, I would classify the police and the military in the broader concept of defense, but if we want to have them as separate, we can.
Okay.
Like, because they're doing the same thing, just one is facing inwards, the other is facing outwards. Right?
Okay. So now
Yeah.
the question becomes, suppose we live in, I'm going to use New Hampshire because you already used it previously in a private discussion. We live in New Hampshire,
Yeah.
and it's a vast state, and most of the people don't want to enter into large covenant communities, let's say,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Would those people, in your view, would each person in that state have the right to hire their own protective agency?
They do have that right, right?
Okay,
You
so
have the right to
everybody in the
self
state.
defense.
So okay, so this is what I'm asking you. So there's no overarching government, and each
Hmm.
participant in that state has the right to enter into contracts with defense agencies.
Yes.
Okay, you have a setup
Important
now.
point here.
Yeah.
Important point here.
Okay.
Uh, they have the right to contract. Would you agree that they have the right to hire a bodyguard? Right? Like two free people have the right to bodyguard, right?
What do you mean? Because here's the problem. Yes, you
Hmm.
do have a right to hire a bodyguard. But what I'm going to argue is you have the right to hire a bodyguard, but that bodyguard is still subordinate to the higher law, to a governmental superstructure that's operating within that geographic area.
Uh, See, this is the issue. I
I know it
agree
is.
on it is the issue, right? And in the sense that I agree that there has to be an objective higher law. I do not agree that that comes necessarily from the government.
No,
The
it doesn't
government is
come.
not the creator of law,
No, I
right?
didn't say they're the creator. I'm saying that the
Right.
government would be the defender of rights. that you
But
need to
then
have
it
but
doesn't
you
have to be.
and they also, okay, you're saying it doesn't have to be it, but that's going to be the key. So
Right?
that goes back to my question. In in an
How do we define
ANCAP,
the government?
hold on, I
How
will
do we
get to,
define a government?
I'll get to that soon. But the first question I want you to answer for me is, in an
Hmm.
ANCAP society, because if you answer the way you answer this, it might be irrelevant to define government. In an ANCAP
Hmm.
society, do the people in this state of the fictional New Hampshire that we've conjured up, the people all live in it, does each member of this state have the right to employ its own defense agency?
Yes.
Okay, so everybody in the state has the right to employ its own defense agency, right? And I'm going to
Hmm.
contract with the defense agency that's going to do the things that I want it to do ultimately.
No, no,
Well,
no.
hold
That
on, hold
that
on.
that that's very wrong.
Okay, but here's the, okay, I'm wrong. So here's the case.
Yeah.
You've already agreed with me that reasonable people can disagree when it comes to rights. So I'm going to give you just
Yes.
a few cases, right?
Hmm.
I'm a father. I hire a defense agency. My daughter is 16 years old. My defense agency says that any male having sex with any male over 18 years old having sex with a 16-year-old girl is rape. If a person
Hmm.
over the age of 18 has sex with my 16-year-old daughter, my defense agency is going to protect her right not to be raped and is going to go and arrest that person. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, consider another defense agency, another set of parents.
Which
This
doesn't do this.
these people, they hire a defense agency. Now, let's say these are next door neighbors, two different defense
Okay.
agencies. This defense agency says, well, look, 16 is the age of consent. If your son, who's 18, has sex with a 16-year-old, that's perfectly fine. If somebody tries to assault him based on that, we are going to defend your son. That's the right thing to
Hmm.
do. This 18
Yeah.
and 16-year-old become boy and girl, boyfriend and girlfriend. They have sex. The parents of the girl say, our daughter has been raped. We want this kid to be prosecuted. Go get him.
Hmm.
The guy, the kid, the 18-year-old, his parents say, no, 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 our son has violated nobody's rights. Anybody that initiates
Hmm.
force against him, we're going to defend against. How do you resolve that?
Yes. Uh, it'll be a long answer, so like bear with me.
Well, it's okay, but I want you to keep in mind that you said in order for
Yes,
capitalism to work, we have to be able to know
there
the
has to.
rules ahead of time,
Yes, yes, we do. Yes,
right?
in the
So,
sense that. Hmm.
and not only that, but the government or whatever, we have to have somebody that's going to protect our rights. So, in order for
Yes.
capitalism to work, we have to know the rules ahead of time, and we have to have an agency, an organization that's going to secure our rights. So, in this scenario, how do you resolve it? Go ahead.
Okay. All right.
And there's going to be more
So
that are just like this. I'm telling you in
I,
advance.
I I agree. I agree. Like I grew up on this. Like I've been resolving things like this since
Dude, you're
2020.
22 years old. You haven't grown up on anything. Go ahead.
I mean, like I've been in this, like libertarian ANCAP circle
For a
since I
few
was like
years.
17.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
five
Like
years.
yeah. So
Okay.
like I say, I grew up on this,
Yeah.
right? So I would say that the broader question is, which this is trying to get to, is not really, well, what do these two defense agencies think, because that's, who cares, like we do care in the case, but like in terms of philosophy, who cares what they think. The broader thing that we're trying to come to is, what are the rights of children, and where would you draw the line in where someone is a child or not. And so that question has to be first philosophically answered, and then there is no disagreement at all, in the sense that there can still be a case, but there will be a philosophical agreement. So let me give the example, in the sense that even if you had, let's say, a government who agreed that the age of consent should be 16, but the true answer, let's say, later found out was 18, then the thing was rape. It was rape, right?
Hmm.
Or it was not. In the sense, let me complete. Please, let me complete.
I'm letting you talk. I'm listening.
Right? Oh, you moved a little bit, so I thought you were getting into attack mode.
Oh, I
Yeah.
am,
So
but that requires me to listen
okay.
first.
All right. Okay. So, in the sense that the government can have a final decision, but it has no guarantee that it is a right decision. The guarantee of a right decision comes from, uh, like actually philosophically discovering the correct correct answer. And that's where I would say the objective law part of capitalism, which we agree on, that has to come from philosophy. That's what I would say. The ANCAP philosophy, let's say my friend Liquid Zulu he gives, right? That's the job of philosophers. So what happens in such a society, let's say this is an ANCAP society, is that there is the answer to this question is first discovered by some philosopher, right? Like some like the let's say these two parents, they go to these defense agencies and they say, well, who's correct? Well, then we for all these people in this group first should answer, where do rights begin, where does childhood end, what is the what is the philosophical base of this, and then once that is answered, then you apply that philosophical principle to this situation. There will be a logical conclusion, and that will be the correct solution.
This
For
is post
example,
hoc. Oh, I got a
just
question
give
though.
me 1 second.
Is this post? Is this afterwards or
No,
beforehand?
this is, let's say, I would say, uh, well, right now I would say we do have an answer to this specific question, but let's say we discover a question we don't have an answer to. I think this should be the proper way to approach the question in both the ANCAP and the government models. We should not just let the government decide arbitrarily. The government then should go to a legal philosopher and ask for like find the best legal philosopher in the realm, ask for the best personal opinion that he has, see if it's logically consistent, apply it to this situation, right? And I hold both the ANCAP defense agencies and the government to that same standard. Just because the government says that 18 is the age of consent, we don't know. What if it's 25? What if it's 14? We don't know. Like, how do we know, right? Like, I'd say, like, we should philosophically answer this question first, any question, and then apply it, and that solves the uh, competing law. Competing agencies does not mean competing law. Law is one. Agencies can compete, right? And but if you agree on the law, then you can compete on the services provided under that law. But I would say the law is one, and the law has to come from philosophy, not through an agency. The government is just an agency as well, right?
Have you ever heard about the debate between Bishop Wilberforce and T.H. Huxley?
Mm,
They debated evolution, Darwinism.
mhm.
Huxley took
Okay.
Darwinism, Bishop Wilberforce took the other side. Bishop
Mhm.
Wilberforce said something to the effect of, I wonder if Mr. Huxley will tell us whether he's descended from monkeys on his mother's side or his father's side. T.H.
Both
Huxley,
sides.
the agnostic, the person who I think coined the term agnosticism, said, the Lord hath delivered him into my hands. Man, the Lord hath
Yeah.
delivered you into my hands.
Let's
I'm going to
go.
give my another example, and I want to see if your answer is
Mhm.
the same. And if it is, just say
Okay.
same.
Okay.
IP is a very controversial topic amongst
Mm.
libertarians and objectivists,
Yes.
all around the realm.
Yeah. 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 Mhm.
My buddy Stephen Kinsella is like, what's the word I'm looking? A zealot when it comes to being anti
Yeah.
IP. I'm pro IP. He isn't. So you have a
Mhm.
situation where I believe that I have a right to my intellectual property. I have a defense agency who offers that service to protect my intellectual
Mhm.
property. I hire him,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I'm a writer. Let's say I write music.
Mhm.
You have are an opponent of IP. You think it's codswallop. It's a nonsensical idea. You hire a
Mhm.
defense agency that is going to defend your rights, and they say there is none. I write a song. You copy my song and sell it. I go to my
Mhm.
defense agency. I say this person has violated my rights. I want him arrested and prosecuted. Your agency
Mhm.
says no. You're not arresting our guy.
Yeah.
Is this to be resolved in the same way as your last uh, thing went?
Yes.
Okay.
Because the disagreement is of philosophical nature. It's not that
Okay.
we all agree that IP is the same thing, and we're seeing the question is not that the we all agree on the philosophical principle IP is the same thing, and now we are debating, did this guy steal the song or not? What the fundamental debate now is IP even a thing? And I think that has to be first resolved by the philosophers, and then
Hmm.
once a best resolution is reached, then that has to be applied to the case.
Okay. So
Mhm.
not only is your idea Platonist, but you've
No,
also introduced the idea of philosopher kings who are going to solve the issue
no,
for
no, no.
us.
Not kings.
What?
Not
Hold
kings.
on, no, hold on. This is why I say it's Platonist, because we're
Mhm.
here to have a discussion of reality. That
Mhm.
philosophy, you always have to connect your abstract ideas to concretes in reality, right?
Agreed.
Right now, and I can't conceive even of the possibility of the say in the fictional state of New Hampshire. What do they have in New Hampshire? 30 million people.
Yeah.
30 million people. 30 million people who are going to all submit their system to a philosopher who is going to decide on a law. They're all going to
That's not
agree
what
on
I'm
this.
saying.
Okay,
No,
but this,
no, no.
but no,
That's not what.
but man, this is what would
Yeah.
have to occur because
No.
otherwise, if people are free to hire defense agencies, they're going to disagree about fundamental rights, and then they're going to go and hire the
Not
defense agency
really.
to protect their rights.
Not really.
How long have libertarians and objectivists been arguing about intellectual property? You think that that's suddenly going to be
It's been some
resolved?
decades.
Yeah. How about the
It will,
idea?
in the
Now
sense
you're
that,
saying. Now let's
see,
go back to the other example.
mhm,
The idea of statutory rape. The idea that there's some intrinsic number out there that
there is
decides
not.
when there is none. There is going to
It is
be
an
a level
individual
of.
basis.
Yeah, but you already told me that in order to
Mhm.
act, in order to have our rights secure, we have to know how to act ahead of time. So if a kid is 18
Yes.
years old and he has sex with a 16-year-old girl, how the hell could he know if that girl is going to be adjudicated to be okay to have sex with him if they have to do it on an individual basis? And if it has to
Well,
be and if it's not on
he
an
can
individual
know.
basis,
It is,
how?
in the
How
sense
can
that,
he know?
I'll let you know, in the sense
Go
that
ahead.
the way it would be, let's say, adjudicated on the individual basis is, you check for, is this person rational, mature, and able to consent to, is this person understanding these things? And
What
that
if
is,
he
you
isn't?
could you could look and tell.
What if
Well,
he isn't rational and mature enough?
then we can't decide these issues on like irrational people, right? Like
No, you
the
but
thief
the
doesn't
law,
know about rights,
man, but the
right?
law has to address these situations. You can't just say,
It does
"Well, we're not
address
going to
it.
do it."
It does
How?
address it.
No, the point is, and you conceded that people have to be able to know, not that they will know,
Yes,
but that they
they have
have
to
to
be
be
able to know in
able
principle.
to know in principle ahead of
This guy
time
can know.
how
Yeah,
they can
he can
act.
know.
How? By
Like
consulting a
the prince.
philosopher?
No, no, no. That's not what I'm saying. That's a
You
different
but
thing.
that is
I'm
what
saying
you
that
said, man. You said
no,
you
no, no.
consult
What I said
philosophers to
was
find out the
no, no, no.
answer.
I mean, that's what like that is the philosophical theory of history, right? Like the philosopher is the guy who it's not like we go to the philosopher. It's that philosophy, the field, gives us these answers, and then we apply them to
Man,
reality,
a
right?
field only consists of the individuals in it. You don't consult a
Sure,
field.
like
There's plenty of
individual.
different
I know,
philosophers, and so you have to
I know.
decide which specific philosopher are you going to consult on this. And you
You
already
can't
told
do
me
better
that.
than your own mind,
Yeah,
right?
but you already told me that intelligent, reasonable people can have disagreements.
Yes,
So
but
to
those
say
can be
yes
solved. Those can be solved by logic, right?
by logic or by a person that's employing logic.
No, no, no. By two, however many people who are in that disagreement, if they go for logic, eventually there will be a resolution. You know that, right?
So
Is that
okay.
one person's view will be some contradiction, another person won't be. The person without the contradiction stands.
So in your version of anarcho-capitalism, then you have a final arbiter that's going to be a
In this,
philosopher,
it is going to be not a philosopher. I'm not going to like put Stephen Kinsella
a
as
team
the
of
god king of
philosophers,
ANCAP.
a team of philosophers.
Anybody who knows philosophy who can resolve these things, ultimately things escalate up to them,
Hold
right?
on,
And that
Michael
that has to be
Humer.
in any situation.
Man, Michael Humer knows philosophy. Is he going to be the decider?
It's not humor. Is humor's argument in this context correct or not?
Who's going to
It's
decide
objective,
that?
it's not
Hold on,
subjective.
Okay.
Logic,
Humor's
we all can.
okay, but then
We
why do
have
we
the
need
rules
to?
of logic.
Okay, but man, if we can all just decide on logic, why do we have to consult the philosopher?
Don't do it yourself. But if that's the point of,
Okay,
right,
but then how? Okay,
in
but
the
then
sense that,
people are not infallible. And you already
mhm,
told me that people can come to different
that's
conclusions,
why we have
rational,
experts,
smart people.
right?
But you just said we don't
Right.
have to
But
consult
that's
the
why we have
experts.
experts. I'm
But
saying
you
you
just
don't,
told me
like,
we don't
in the
have to
sense that
consult them.
you don't, the same way that you don't have, like, you don't have to hire a lawyer. You could study law and go for yourself. But
I
let's be
could.
real here. You don't know law, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you know philosophy, do it yourself, right? Give your
Okay.
best argument.
But man, the problem is you're dealing with matters of force. And so you're going
We
to
are.
have disagreements. You're going, and you've
We
already,
do it.
and okay, so you've already got different defense agencies who are operating to different conclusions of natural rights,
Don't
right?
you think these defense, let's say, if we in this conversation are able to discover this one problem, don't you think the CEOs of these defense agencies will already kind of resolve these things,
No,
in
I
the
do
sense
not.
that
No, I do not. You and I couldn't
this is
even
a
resolve
problem
it.
they,
You and I
no, no,
can't
no, but
resolve it.
they
You and
can
I
they
are
can
both
come to a
smart
reasonable
people.
conclusion.
No,
Uh-huh.
well,
Yeah,
that's fine.
I
But
think
when
we
that
will
reason,
eventually.
hold on. But the reason, eventually,
Mhm.
that's fine. But my 18-year-old son is facing prison time. So
Yeah,
it's fine if we're going to consult philosophers and do all that. But in the immediate moment, my 18-year-old son is facing prison time for for engaging in
I
a
would say.
lawful act according to my agency.
Mhm. I would say,
And by the
let's take
way,
two
ahead of
situations here.
time, hold on,
Go ahead.
ahead of time, he was under the impression because his agency told him it would protect him. So ahead of time, he was under the impression that this is legal to do.
That's not how it has to be, right? Like, in the sense that you don't just rely on the word of one guy. You
It's
rely
not
on
one guy. It's the
all of the
agency that's
reality.
been
Yeah,
contracted to protect his rights.
sure,
Capitalism entails
sure.
one of the strongest arguments for anarcho-capitalism is that in a capitalist society, people have choices. They go to
They do,
the
but you
seller
don't have
that's
choices on.
providing the
Yeah.
best.
Hmm.
This is the inherent problem with making law a commodity. So now the people get to go and
Hmm.
choose
Law is
what
not a
laws
commodity.
that they're going to, what
No,
agency and what laws.
no, no, no,
Okay,
no, no,
so then you're
no, no, no.
already putting limits on
In the sense that,
what types of agencies are allowed to come into being.
yes,
Who's going to
yes,
stop them?
yes.
Who's going to stop them?
Who's going? Every other agency.
But every other agency, they don't all agree with each other.
They will on this thing. Like, in order
All
to be
well, man,
classified.
we have 50 states. All the states in this country don't even agree on the age of consent.
See, when we're talking about, let's say, an anarcho-capitalist society, we are talking about a society in which has a particular view of natural law, and so it still
How
says
many
that there
people
can
in
be
our chat yesterday?
disagreements.
Man, how many
Mhm.
anarcho capitalists in our chat yesterday, which consisted of like 10 people, disagree with each other?
Yeah, I mean, not on the basic principles, not a lot. Like,
No,
there can be
basic
disagreements
principles.
here or there,
That's fine, but we're not talking
right?
about basic principles. We're talking about the
But
practical
there's the thing.
application
Let's
of
say,
these principles.
right. But that, let's say a Sharia law defense agency comes across. Like, you would
Yeah.
concede that pretty much every ANCAP defense agency in the region can see, hey, terrorists over there, let's go get them,
Okay. Terrorists, that's fine,
right?
but we're not talking about
Yeah, but
fundamental
then what we are
disagreements.
saying,
Man, we're
yes,
talking
yes, yes.
about
But then we,
practical application.
right, I agree, and that's the thing. Practical applications, especially when it comes to hard topics, is hard, right? It is hard. I agree. It is also similarly hard for the government, in the sense the government can but give a decision. It has no guarantee it will give the right one,
No, it
right?
doesn't. But what you could have in the state of Connecticut, where I live, the age
Mhm.
of consent for a girl to have sex is 16 years old. That's uniform throughout the state. So people can
It
know, and
should
it's
not be
actually,
though.
but hold on, but it's actually taught in school that they tell you this is the age of consent. So now you can know. So now if you're 19 years old and you meet a girl that's 15 and you have sex with her, you can
You
know,
know,
and not very difficult to know, that you are breaking the law. It might not be the
yeah.
right law, but it is the
Hmm.
law, so you can know. And you already
See,
conceded that you have to be able to know the laws
I
ahead of time.
agree. I
And
agree.
that's why
You
in a
do.
given to have a
Let,
different laws
Mhm.
in a given geographic area, you're going to have conflict. People simply cannot know how to act. And we could expend this to issues of fraud,
No, no, no. They
IP.
can. Yeah, they can. They can. In the sense that,
How?
let's say, the similarly as now it's taught in schools that hey, 16 is the law, right? What you could also tell them is that if you think like is this person able to consent, like there is a science of telling if another person, like is this person able to tell you that they are rational, they're able to talk to you, they're able to like say that hey, this is what we want to do we want to do it? And of course, like there are like physiological limits, and there can be, let's say, principles in which you can say that okay,
Okay.
don't go for people under 18, I would
Uh-huh.
say, right?
Yeah.
Like you could have something like that, and that can be, let's say, uh, explicated. Like, by the way, I won't even disagree in the sense that you could have you know you could have neighborhoods upon neighborhoods which agree upon these things and
Manu.
solve these things like
Man, I'm
this,
sorry, I called
right?
you Manu.
Man,
Yeah,
yeah,
Man.
no problem. Yeah,
You previously
like there are
told me,
solutions here,
hold
there
on,
are solutions here.
hold on, but you're not offering them
Yeah.
because you previously
Hmm.
told me, right, that it would have to be decided at which age this is done. And the philosophers would
Yes.
tell you that. Now you're telling
No,
me
no,
it
no, no,
has
no.
to be decided
The
on an
philosophers
individual
has to
basis.
give the principle.
Yes,
No, no,
but
no.
now you're
I said that the philosophers have to give the principle, and the
no, they
principle is
of
that
what
it's
age
individual.
is appropriate. That's
No,
what
no,
you
no, no,
told me
no. I
earlier.
would say
Man, you can watch
no,
the
no, no,
tape.
no, no.
You
Okay,
previously
I
said that
can.
they would tell you what the proper age is. Now you're
No,
telling me
come
that
on. I didn't
that
say that.
hold on. Now you're telling me that ante, meaning
Hmm.
before this happens, that an 18-year
Yeah.
old kid is going to have to assess the rationality of a 16-year-old girl in order to know if she specifically is
It's
able
not
to
hard to do.
consent. It is
It's not hard to do.
incredibly, man, it is incredibly
It's not
hard.
hard to.
And so how about
I
this?
can
How about
see,
so hold
right?
on. So he comes to so intelligent people can disagree. You already said that.
Yeah,
He assesses
yeah.
she's competent. Her parents say no. They go to one judge. That judge says yes. Another judge that says no. How are you going to resolve it?
One of
You
them is
have no
right,
final
and we're
arbiter.
gonna.
How are you going to decide it?
But one of them, there is a final arbiter in logic. One, we are
But
gonna
but
assess all the
but
facts.
man,
Let's see all the facts,
logic is not
right?
arresting you. Individual human
Hmm.
beings or groups of human beings are the ones enforcing the law.
Yeah, I would say those people would have to do their best to find a logical conclusion, and they might be wrong, as in all systems. Like man is
Yeah.
fallible, and
Okay.
eventually it'll
Yep.
have like it'll have to come down to something, right? Like
It's gonna
we
okay.
can't debate this forever,
So
right?
man,
In the sense, yeah,
so let me just tell you that because I could multiply these examples all over the place.
yeah, yeah, of course, of course,
Your defense of anarcho-capitalism as a legitimate concept is that we can find the answers eventually.
we can.
And that's the defense of
Not
anarcho-capitalism.
that there is one, we can find the answers eventually, and there is two, uh, all systems suffer from edge cases, and all systems will have these kinds of problems,
They
and
do. But
yeah,
man,
yeah, but mhm,
the solution to the edge cases. Yes, there's edge
mhm,
cases, but if I can know in advance what these edge cases are, then I could know how to
you,
act. That was the predicate of this
mhm,
discussion is that you have to know what the
sure.
law is ahead of time. It wasn't based on
Let's
the
take the
law
extreme
has to be
example.
correct. Huh?
No, 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 but there will always also be edge cases in the sense that let's take a person with Down syndrome, right? This Down syndrome person will never be competent, and let's say the current government system allows this Down syndrome person to have sex after 18. This is
Yeah.
rape. Yeah, that's happening right now,
Okay, I don't doubt it, but you would still know ahead of
right?
time. That's the key
But the
is you have to know ahead of time. We're not talking right now, man, about the objectivity of a given law and whether the given law is correct. This conversation that we're having now was predicated on the fact that in order for rights to be secure, in order for capitalism to exist, people have to be able to know the laws ahead of time. And in the
they
two
do,
cases I
and they
gave you,
can.
how? There is no law ahead of time.
Okay,
You have two competing
okay.
defense agencies, each
Let's
representing
let's
different
go
laws.
into let's go into like the uh, allow me to give like a 3 minute long
Okay.
answer. It
Okay,
might
I
help,
will, but I have
right?
to tell you, I have to get to work, so I've got about 10 minutes left. I just don't want to
All
ambush
right,
you and
okay.
say, okay, your time is up.
I get
I
it.
want to make sure
Okay,
I'm
okay.
being fair to you.
Yeah, and thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really enjoying this. And I would say the long answer of this has to be in the sense that the same way that to we discovered, hey, there is a problem here, in the sense that it might be hard to tell when someone is competent to give consent in different fields, right? For example, similar things come up with child labor laws. For example, yeah, a 12-year-old is competent to deliver newspapers, but he might not be competent to work in a nuclear power station because he don't know what the risks of that are, and he cannot know at his current mental level, right? And so, like, there are, in these edge cases, as you say, like ANCAP, the answer that philosophy gives to the age of consent problem is, well, look at the person and see if they're competent. But that's not a good answer, in the sense that, well, an 18-year-old might not be able to do that. So you could actually build on top of that while being in the anarcho-capitalist framework of non-aggression, in the sense that you could, let's say, lobby all of the defense agencies to say, let's have the standard at 18, and then an exceptions clause in which you have to kind of prove that, okay, this less than 18 person was competent enough, right? You could have solutions here which are non-aggressive, but philosophy does not answer everything, right? And
No,
similarly,
in my
uh,
defense
in the
agency, I
government
want to
system,
protect my son, man.
you do, but that's why I'm not saying, like, the world wouldn't end at you, right? We're talking about an
No, it
anarcho-capitalist
doesn't.
society, right? And like all of those people, like, all I am saying is that society should not violate, should not in like a society should not be based upon the initiation of force. And are there difficult, very very difficult problems? Of course there. I'm in engineering, I solve difficult problems, right? And but it is possible, fundamentally possible, to solve these problems eventually and find a good enough solution right now that does not violate the non-aggression principle.
Oh,
I would propose this: make, let's say, lobby all of these defense agencies to have the age at 18, and, like, say that if you're not going to do that, we will not, like, your consumer base will not subscribe to you, you know and once they have it at 18, you could have like a appeal clause in which you could say, this and this. And for sure there will sometimes be issues that you are bringing up, in the sense that there will sometimes be conflicts, cases which are very hard to solve. They are in all systems, right? Law is a complicated field, as all are. But
you froze on
fundamentally,
me.
this is not going to be the normal, right? The normal. Okay, am I there? Am I
No,
there?
you're here. But here's
Right.
where
Okay.
this is why I say
All right.
anarcho-capitalism is not a legitimate concept. Because what I'm talking about are the
Mhm.
practical realities that actually occur when you have people can
But
sign
in
up
the
for their own
practical
defense
realities, right?
agencies. But you're talking
Sure,
about is this a fictional world where people can appeal to the knowledge of philosophers
they
behind
can
them,
learn
where
now. No,
all
no,
these
no,
different people
no,
are
no,
going
no,
to agree that this is what they're going to
no.
do. But that's the problem, is they don't. This is why David Friedman is correct when David Friedman says an anarchist society does not guarantee a libertarian society, because people can choose to go to different agencies and they're going to, and you have no overarching agency to stop them from doing so. And you're
You
going to
could.
end up with, you could
That's a
stop
beautiful
them.
thing as well.
You could
That's a
stop them.
beautiful thing. No, no, no.
If you're saying, hold
That's a
on,
beautiful thing.
if you're saying that an overarching agency can stop lower agencies from coming into existence, as long as
No, no,
that
no, no, no. What I'm saying
they
is that,
can't do it or they can.
no, no. In the sense, you could view it this way. Like, the definition that I gave for ANCAP never said about competing agencies. So what actually you could do, let's say Michael Liebowitz has given us the best argument, like, and let's say a lot of people have agreed that there has
Man,
to
I
be
love
one
you.
really, really big one,
Man,
right?
I love you.
And
I'm going to absolutely slay you on this.
that's okay.
Is a definition the same thing as a concept?
No,
Okay, so the fact that the definition doesn't include defense agencies is irrelevant to
no,
whether
no,
the
no, no.
concept does.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree with you. I'm just saying, I'm
Okay,
saying something else, right?
okay, but at the
Yeah.
very beginning, You told me
Mhm.
that in the fictional New Hampshire, according to what you mean by
Yeah, there can be.
anarcho-capitalism,
There
that
can be.
competing defense agencies would have to be allowed.
Have allowed, but there are other ways in which you could, let's say, influence the market to make a lot of these problems less viable. For example, in a free market, right? Like, let's take this scenario in the sense that, let's say you have convinced a lot of ANCAPs or a lot of people in this New Hampshire state that, hey, in order to best uh, protect our rights, we got to have a really really big one, big defense agency, which kind of goes after any smaller ones which might be violating rights, and there should be these principles which it should follow, right?
You have a
That,
government
you
at
might
that
call
point.
that government.
No,
But
I
that's
will
the thing.
call it
I
government.
am
That's what
not.
it is.
Yeah, yeah, you could call it, but I would not be opposed to that because you're still following the non-aggression principle the entire time you were doing.
Okay. So I got a simple question for you, right? And I'm going to
Hmm.
give you the hypothetical. And by the way,
Yeah.
I just want to say that I'm not saying that that's what I'm going to suggest right now is probable
Hmm.
or even possible in the near future. I do think it's
Hmm.
possible because humans have free will, though.
It is.
If you
Yes.
had a government, let's say the government governs the entire United States,
Hmm.
and all this government does is protect rights. It's funded through
Hmm.
voluntary contributions, through lottery, and it's cheap because all it does is protect rights. It's not a welfare state. It's
Hmm.
not invading other
Yeah.
countries. So it's much cheaper. And all it does is protect rights.
Hmm.
One, do people have to consent to be governed by this? And two, would this government be in its rights to stop new defense agencies from coming into existence because they represent a threat?
I would say one. Well, they're not being ruled at all. Like, if this organization all it does is protect rights,
That's
then
it.
if you never violate rights, you never come in contact with it. So it's
Okay,
irrelevant,
but
right?
does it have
One,
the? But does is it within its moral right to prevent? First of all,
which is
do
what I'm
you
coming on
do
to,
you do you
right?
have to consent to be under the jurisdiction of this government? And two,
There is no
are
point
they
of
with?
consenting. Like, they're not taking anything
There's
from you.
not. Well, what if I
Yeah,
rob somebody?
yeah.
What if I rob somebody and they want to prosecute me? Do I have the right to say I've never consented to this government?
No,
So okay, so consent is not relevant. The
no, no, no.
relevant
In
moral
the sense
point
that
is
consent is the concept of consent. It has to be when something is being taken from, like,
gotcha.
there is a trade in consent,
Okay,
right?
okay.
Like, this
So
guy
so
is
in
not,
so
right?
the fundamental to a proper government then is not consent, it's whether it is protecting rights.
No, no, no. Consent does not apply in the fact that you
Okay.
were the guy who violated consent, right?
Okay.
It's just
Yeah.
some guy is trying to
Okay.
get back at you now. And
Okay.
the
So my next
the
so
second one, right?
the second one,
Right.
if that
Yeah.
government, if it sees that an organization is trying to form that will compete with it
Hmm.
for say rights protection. Let me give you
Yeah.
the example. You have this government that protects rights, right? That's all it
Hmm.
does. It's funded voluntarily.
It also. Yeah.
You have a
Beautiful.
small agency that develops
Hmm.
that is going to
Hmm.
also protect rights.
Yeah. Yes.
Somebody from this new agency runs into a conflict with somebody from the bigger government who only protects rights. Which one has jurisdiction? Would it be proper for the already formed government that protects rights to assert jurisdiction in that case?
I wouldn't think so. In the sense
You'd
that
say,
if,
no, it does not have
uh,
the right. So then it does not have the
yes,
right to stop new agencies from coming into being.
yes, it does not. In the sense that if the new agency, all it does is protect rights as well. Like, if the new agency also just protects rights, then it is a
Yeah.
legitimate thing. And
Okay.
we
But,
again run into the old problem,
yes, but you already told me
right?
that conflicts can
Hmm.
arise even amongst rational people committed to
It
protecting
can,
rights. Okay.
they
And
can,
you've just presented a situation where the conflict cannot be solved.
it can be solved.
Why?
There is a way of
If
solving it.
one agency refuses and the other agency insists, how do you resolve it?
Well, that's the thing. Like, it cannot be solved if one of them is irrational.
Sorry, folks, but we had an interruption in our connection. I don't know why, But in the interest of time, we're going to cut it off now. But I'm going to allow Mon. He's going to give a closing statement. I'll give a short rebuttal, and then we will move on. I apologize for the interruption. I don't know what happened. Go ahead, Mon.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I would like to thank Michael. Whenever I talk to Michael, first of all, like look at this guy, look at his smile. It's so nice. And the second, like his, it's so respectful. It's so nice, and it's so logical. Like the, like what top 0.01% of people in the world of of conversational skills probably and logic and stuff, right? Like I love objectivists, even if I disagree on like politics and basically like in the broad philosophical system. I agree with metaphysics, epistemology, ethics, aesthetics, and like objectivist politics. I have disagreements, but if let's say the objectivist system came about, I'll be very very happy, right? So like I am moving to that place, right? And so like I really love the objectivist movement and people like Michael as well. And like, thank you for being here. Thank you for existing, and thank you for like talking to me. I really appreciate it and always enjoy it a lot. And the second thing is, I would say that when I in my closing statement, I would just say this one sentence. When I am talking about ANCAP, all I am talking about is a society which exists, which strictly adheres to non-aggression, right? Non-initiation of force. Now, what that exactly looks like, there are a lot of hard problems to solve, which are philosophical, legal, implementational, economic, thousands of problems. I am not shying away that it's a hard problem to solve. What I'm saying is, though, that in principle, such a society is possible. In principle, uh, even though there can be problems, such a society is possible. And uh, given that it is possible, as Ayn Rand used to say, like, you know, if it is possible, if it is ideal, it is what man could be and then ought to be. So, like, in my view, if this ideal society of non-aggression, if it could be, then it ought to be in this world, and that's what I'm trying to do, and I'm going to, keep trying to do that, and I also view that objective, and also like this is a key view that I have, that before we even like validly talk about implementing anarcho-capitalism, we need a very moral, very objective society. So like my primary purpose is not even anarcho-capitalism; it is the spreading of objectivist epistemology and morality, right? Like that is the fundamental. Like the politics part, I view it as like a side issue. Like we can talk about that later. But the fundamental, the real important thing is the epistemology and the ethics, right? That is the thing that helps you in your life as well the most. So I would say that would be my closing arguments. And I once again thank Michael for having me here. I love it. I love
Mon,
talking.
thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. My fundamental
Hmm.
point in well, my fundamental point in the debate was to have Mon on the show. But my
Hmm.
fundamental debate point is simple. Anarcho capitalism is an anti concept. It's a contradiction in terms, would probably be a better way to say it. And I say that because of this. In order for capitalism to function, it requires objective law, knowable in advance over a given geographic area. And you simply cannot have that with the anarcho capitalism framework. That's all I have to say on that.
Hmm.
Mon, you've been
All right.
absolutely wonderful. I'm definitely going to have you on again. I will come on your show. Tell people where they can
Thank you.
find you. At the very least, I know you're on X.
Yeah. On X/Twitter, whichever you prefer to call it now. I am Mann Sharma, just my name, and the
Spell it,
Twitter
Mon,
handle
so
is
people
at
can know you. Got an accent. You got to.
yes, yeah.
How do you spell
All
your
right.
name?
It's MANNSHARMA, and the handle is at the rate MANN2609.
Yeah.
Right?
It's Mann Sharma, MANNSHARMA. If you just search him
Yes.
on X, you will find him. He's a great follow. He's always
Yes.
talking about interesting things. And you're going to have a
Mhm.
new show coming out at some point,
Yeah.
correct?
I have recently started a YouTube channel which mostly talks about objectivist issues and like some
Oh,
ANCAP
well,
issues
what's
as
the
well.
name of the YouTube station?
Oh, like I come on your chat often, like Rational Frontier, right? So
Okay, Rational
uh,
Frontier.
uh, yes, and in the
I'm going to
sense that
include a link.
uh,
Give me the link
right,
to your show,
yeah,
and I'll include it here.
okay, all right,
All right.
and
And one
by
more
the
thing, man.
yeah,
Stop fanboying over Stephen Kinsella.
well, it's hero worship, right?
All right.
Right.
Thanks, man. Thanks, everyone, for joining us
All
here
right.
today. I hope you enjoyed the show. For now, this is the Rational Egoist signing out. I'm Michael Liebowitz. Till next time.